morning. Come on in. Please stand. Join me for number 21, For the Beauty of the Earth.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Spokane, where we join together to create a nourishing, liberal religious home and to champion justice, diversity, and environmental stewardship in our wider world, or as we say in short, to create community, find meaning, and work for justice. I want to begin, as always, by embracing all that you bring with you to this space, all of your unique beliefs and your background, your lifestyle, your experiences, your differences, all that helps make you who you are is welcome here this morning. And this includes those of you who are in the room with us this morning, as well as those of you who are live streaming with us. We're glad to have all of you. And for those of you who have decided to skip church altogether because of the holiday, well, too bad. You're going to miss a good one, and we're not going to tell you about it. So actually, I'm very, very glad. I hope you enjoyed the long holiday and do appreciate you coming this morning. Good to have all of you. I did want to, remind you that the NAUA, North American Unitarian Association's first yearly summit is going to be happening again here in our church, October 18th through 20th. And would love to have folks come register and come to that if you can. Particularly be great to have you here in person, to have a good crowd here in the space. But there are also there's alternative registration for those who wish to or can only attend online. So we'll make sure that all of the programming that we have is both live streamed and in person, so that everybody can enjoy that. But you can go to NAUnitarians.org, North American Unitarians, NAUnitarians.org, and easily register there. And even though I already did it this morning, I'm going to do it again second service, because I'm so glad to see Madeline back with us. Yes, go ahead. Yeah. Who definitely deserved a brief sabbatical, a month-long sabbatical. And you, by the way, you covered us very well. We had some outstanding performances and song leaders in your absence. Nevertheless, we missed you, so welcome back. And she's in full force today. And I did let her know, ask her not to get any ideas about Boston. It's a terrible place to live. I won't go into all the reasons again, but I think you have the list. Not, I'll write it down for you. Okay. So welcome back, Madeline, very much. And welcome to all of you now that you're sitting down comfortably, why don't you get up and say hi to somebody? All right, we'll continue our visiting as always during our social hour following the service, but we're going to move forward now by lighting our chalice, which is the symbol of our unity and our solidarity, of our openness and our inclusion, of our community and our individual uniqueness. May this small flame be our offering of warmth to those who are cold and alone, and a light to those in darkness. May it be a flame that ignites justice in our world and a beacon of hope to those in need, and may it reflect at least a spark of truth wherever truth has been lost, and cast a healthy shadow of doubt wherever it's been found.
My opening reflection this morning comes from Dreaming the Dark by Starhawk. We are all longing to go home to some place we have never been. A place half remembered and half envisioned that we can only catch glimpses of from time to time. Community. Somewhere, there are people to whom we can speak with passion without having the words catch in our throats. Somewhere, a circle of hands will open to receive us. Eyes will light up as we enter the room. Voices will celebrate with us whenever we come into our own power. Community means strength that joins our strength to do the work that needs to be done. Arms to hold us when we falter, a circle of healing, a circle of friends, some place where we can be free. Welcome to your someplace.
Please stand, join me for Filled with Loving Kindness, number 1031.
We're now going to kindle our candles of care for those who are most on our hearts and minds. And we begin, as we have been, on behalf of the people of Ukraine and Russia and that region of the world being impacted by the war and violence there, as well as the people of Israel and Palestinian people who are being impacted by the terrible violence there. Did not receive any specific requests for folks this week, so let's take the usual moment of silence, during which, as always, you're welcome to name them aloud if you'd like. Those named aloud and those embraced in our silence, and all those who are suffering in our world at this hour, we hold in our community with compassion. And we now gratefully give and receive this morning's offering, which helps sustain this community and our mission to the larger world.
Come with me and you'll see, in a world of pure imagination, take a look and you'll see into your imagination. We'll begin with a spin, traveling in the world of my creation. What we'll see will defy explanation. If you want to view paradise, simply look around and view it. Anything you want to do it. Want to change the world, there's nothing to it. There is no is nothing to it. There is no life I know to compare with pure imagination. Living there, you'll be free if you truly wish to be.
Madeline and Maura, thank you both very much. As I said, we're so glad to have you back. And speaking of a world of imagination, I have a friend to help with our story for all ages, but anybody who might want to come forward at this time is welcome to do so. It's not an altar call, I mean just to hear the story. Oh, it's my old friend, Charlie McCarthy. Oh my goodness, what a beautiful looking crowd today. It's so good to be here. Why, Charlie, I've never heard you be so polite. You're in an awful cheerful mood today. What's going on? Well, I'm expecting my first royalty check from the sale of my new best-selling book. I had no idea you'd even written a book, and a bestseller at that. Congratulations. Thank you, thank you. I suppose it's a New York Times bestseller? New York Times? Yes, yes. Okay. Publishers Weekly? Yes, yes. Yes, so it is in Publishers Weekly. Well, not this weekly, but maybe next weekly, or the weekly after that, give or take a weekly. Okay, Charlie. Yeah, I don't even... Yes, yes. So it is an online bestseller. Well, let me put it this way. It's currently a little bit confused. You usually are. You say that your book is a bestseller, correct? That's right. Well, Charlie, to be a bestseller, it has to be on somebody's list of bestsellers. So whose bestsellers list is your book on? Oh, well, if you must know the details, it's on my list of bestsellers. Your list of bestsellers. That's right. It's the best-selling book I've ever written. Okay, well, I guess that's at least something. How many books have you written? Well, that's what makes it so impressive. Not only is it the first book I've ever written, but it's already a bestseller. Okay, Charlie, let's just move forward. Is this it here? That's the masterpiece. Okay. All right. Let's see here. There we go. Looking on the bright side. I do like the title. Well, thank you. I wrote it myself. Okay. How to think more positively about other people's problems. Charlie, what's this about? Well, for $32.95, you can read it and find out for yourself. $32.95. Charlie, this is hardly a pamphlet. This looks like something I could have put together at the last minute at the house this morning and printed off at home. Well, don't give away all your secrets. Okay. Besides, Charlie, this isn't a book. I mean, it's only got one page in it and 3 sentences. You call that a book? Well, I'm a man of few words. A man of few words. Charlie, these aren't even your words. I recognize these sentences. People say nothing is impossible, but I do nothing every day. That's Winnie the Pooh. Oh, well, too on you, Charlie. Here's another. I always wanted to be somebody, but now I realize I should have been more specific. Why, that's Lily Tomlin. Oh, okay, Charlie. Let's see. There's one more. Optimism is going after Moby Dick in a rowboat and taking tartar sauce with you. Charlie, everybody knows that's Zig Ziglar. Oh, I just love that name. Charlie, this is plagiarism. Oh, thank you. I try. Charlie, do you even know what plagiarism means? Well, no, something with that many syllables can't be all that, can it? Charlie, plagiarism is when you take somebody else's words and use them as if they were your own. Is he kidding me? Since when has that been a problem for you, Mr. Ventriloquist? All right, Charlie, look, what is it that you yourself know about positive thinking? Well, I'm an expert on positive thinking. How's that? Well, I'm positive with everything I think. That's true. But, I'm not really positive of much of anything you think, Charlie. Yeah, well, I'm positive it's time to go. Why is that? I have a book signing this afternoon. A book signing? Where do you have a book signing at? Well, it's next to the lemonade stand of the kids across the street. Okay, well, I hope at least you get a refreshing glass of lemonade out of the deal, Charlie. And good luck on your book. Oh, now that's looking on the right side. Thank you, Charlie. By the way, you can get these on Amazon for $32.95, so. Yeah.
I invite you now into a time of meditation. Adjust your position so that you're comfortable. Close your eyes if you wish. Relax with a slow, deep breath. The day has been muted and gray, the sun hidden behind a scrim of clouds like the underside of a gauze canvas draped across the sky. The air, neither cold nor warm, is damp against your skin. Step off the path you are on into the grove of pine trees beside you. Find a spot under one of those trees and settle in. This is the someplace else you are supposed to be right now.
Why are there so many songs about rainbows, and what's on the other side? Rainbows are visions, but only illusions, and rainbows have nothing to hide. So we've been told, and some choose to believe it. I know they're wrong, wait and see. Someday we'll find it, the rainbow connection, the lovers, the dreamers, and me. Who said that every wish would be heard and answered when wished on the morning
Wow. Now I have to get back into the practice of saying, I've got to follow that. Actually, that is one of my favorite songs. My heart just warms every time I hear it, even though it's not a John Denver song. John Denver did sing with the Muppets, so, it's not a complete violation of my values. And Kermit the Frog is a puppet, so, it works for me. But great song. Thank you so much. Today I want to address a subject that I've returned to more than once already. The way in which the term misappropriation has itself been inappropriately expanded to refer to situations that it does not. The use of the term first appeared in the 17th century and was used in a legal context to describe breaches of trust regarding fiduciary matters. Over time, as copyright, patent, and trademark laws were adopted, it came to further refer to kinds of protected property, such as writings, music, songs, art, images, names, discoveries, inventions, and whatnot. But the laws protecting such things, especially creative works, are still relatively limited in their scope. Foremostly, these things need to be legally protected by obtaining the proper copyrights, patents, trademarks, and so on. Without these, it would be hard to make a legal case that one owns such rights to any of even their original works. And if a creation has been around long enough, it comes into the public domain anyway, just as the images of Winnie the Pooh and Mickey Mouse recently have after their 90-year-old copyrights expired. And thanks to the more recent 1984 Hatch-Waxman Act, pharmaceutical companies can only maintain the rights to a new drug for 20 years before other such companies can begin offering generic brands to us at lower prices. Furthermore, things that are in the public domain, which is another legal term, can be used freely by anyone, including the creative works and images of others that are no longer or never have been legally protected. One of the most famous examples of the right of public domain regards the classic horror movie, The Night of the Living Dead, which has made millions in other zombie stories in movies, but this particular one, due to a minor clerical error on the copyright application, the film immediately became public domain upon its release in 1968. And this meant that poor local television stations could air it without paying royalties, probably contributed to its fame. And once the technology came along, businesses were able to freely reproduce it and sell it on VHS and DVD, and now on streaming services. You may also assume that you have the right to own your own image and words, or to your own image and words, but you don't. Not entirely. So long as you can be seen or heard in public spaces, which is another legal category. If you're at a public event and a news crew, for example, should catch your image and record something you say, they're free to use it. They could even stand on the sidewalk outside your home and record images of you while you're inside. That's not illegal. Just ask some of the Hollywood celebrities that face that and politicians that face it every day. A lot of states do require permission before such images are used for publicity purposes, for a profit. So laws intended to prevent misappropriation are very specific to some kinds of property and are rather limited. This is increasingly apparent as we begin to wrestle with the emerging issues of privacy and rights regarding our personal data that's being gathered and used by technology firms, along with now original AI-generated voices and images of real people, like politicians and celebrities. We don't quite have the laws in place to deal with that yet. But my point in giving this background is twofold. Firstly, I want you to understand misappropriation refers to very specific and limited kinds of legal violations, like the misappropriation of funds or the misappropriation of another's writings or other legally protected works. It does not mean, as it is nowadays being used, to refer to anything that anyone considers to have been inappropriately used. At the very least, such claims would not hold up in court, nor be likely to ever make it that far. Secondly, and more importantly, I want to introduce to you this notion of public domain and public spaces. Those spaces where things happen between us, together, and before us, where the free interchange of ideas and speech and culture happen for everyone to see, everyone to experience, and to share, no matter who they are or where they're from or what they look like. If I should visit and walk the streets of New Orleans, for example, and hear a street band playing jazz, fall in love with the sound, then return home, invest in jazz instruments and take lessons, and eventually become so good that I decide to give up ministry and make my living playing jazz, don't worry. Don't worry on many accounts. But if I were, I would have every legal right to do so, and I believe every moral right to do so. This is so whether or not jazz originated from some with darker pigment than mine. Not any more than if the band that inspired me had been all female and I am male, nor if they were all from Louisiana and I'm from Washington State, nor if they all happen to be gay and I'm straight. If, however, I were to take a specific copyrighted song of theirs and publicly perform it without proper attribution, permission, or paying the necessary royalties, it would be an act of misappropriation, both legally and, I believe, morally. But under copyright laws, such an act is already illegal and can be addressed as such. These matters should not be adjudicated online in the form of an uninformed court, the uninformed court of public opinion. The expansion of the term to mean that anyone of one culture or identity group cannot imitate others who are of a different culture or identity group is a good example of what Greg Lukianoff and Jonathan Haidt call concept creep in their book, Coddling of the American Mind, a term they attribute to psychologist Nick Haslam. It occurs when, over time, the meaning of a well-defined term creeps downward to apply to less severe situations and outward to encompass new but conceptually related phenomenon. Although they mention concept creep in reference to words like harm and trauma, we can see it also applies to misappropriation, which began, as I pointed out, as a legal term that has come to refer to anyone who might be inspired by someone from a different identity group, like the unfortunate white guy who was protested and run out of Portland, Oregon a few years ago for opening a burrito stand. Of course, we ought to give credit where credit is due. Not only is that the law, but it is the right and the honest thing to do. As Robin DiAngelo, the author of White Fragility, a book published by the Unitarian Universalist Association, says in an accountability statement on her own website, always cite and give credit to the work of BIPOC people, right, Black, Indigenous, people of color, who have informed your thinking. When you use a phrase or idea you got from a BIPOC person, credit them. Of course. This should be and is true of all people, not just Black, Indigenous, and people of color, because again, that's copyright law. We're supposed to do that. Surprisingly, it was reported just this week that D'Angelo herself is now accused of extensively plagiarizing the work of BIPOC scholars in her 2004 dissertation that earned her a PhD from the University of Washington. According to a complaint recently filed with the University of Washington, where D'Angelo received her PhD in multicultural education, she plagiarized several scholars, including 2 minorities, in her doctoral thesis. The story, which has since been widely reported by mainstream newspapers, was first covered in the Washington Free Beacon by journalist Aaron Sibarium just this past Monday. In it, Sibarium explains, the complaint describes dozens of cases in which D'Angelo, who rakes in almost $1 million a year in speaking fees, passed off the work of others as her own. It calls into question the key credential on which D'Angelo built her career, which has relied on the notion that her therapeutic workshops, which can cost up to $40,000 and insist that all white people are racist, are backed by scholarly expertise. The Free Beacon article shows dozens of examples supporting the complaint, but because there are reportedly so many of them, it only provides the worst examples, which are enough to already fill pages. As the first person ever to publicly write about and criticize D'Angelo's white fragility hypothesis, even before her book by the same title was published by the UUA's once reputable publishing house, Beacon Press, which has also made millions, I'm not surprised that her academic credentials and scholarly legitimacy are now being questioned. But my point here, other than rubbing her nose in it just a little, is that if she thinks it's hard to follow copyright laws, which can be easily adhered to simply with quotation marks and footnotes, try never imitating or copying anything originating from a different identity group than one's own, including those of us who are considered part of a dominant identity. The Romans took the gods of those they conquered and simply renamed them. The Christians did the same with the holy days with the pagans they persecuted. The Bible's so-called Old Testament is the appropriated scripture of the Jewish people whom they also persecuted and oppressed. These examples of appropriating the works and ways of others may seem ironic, if not unfair, but they prove that it's not possible, even for those who consider themselves superior to others, to not be influenced by them and adopt some of their ways. This is how culture, like life, spreads, and how humans learn in general, through imitation. In some of my previous sermons, I've made the point that the liberal ideas and values passed down to us through the Enlightenment originated with the early Greek philosophers 2,600 years ago. These thinkers were the first that we know of who began trying to understand reality in natural rather than supernatural terms, which was necessarily predicated on their belief in human reason and human agency, in a positive view of humanity. The first few of these philosophers were from the island of Miletus. But why? Why there? What was it about Miletus that made its climate unique enough to cause humanity to leap forward in such an unprecedented way? In his book, Anaximander and the Birth of Science, Italian physicist Carlo Rovelli reminds us that Miletus was the Greek outpost nearest to the Middle East, allowing trade with Mesopotamia, Egypt, and various colonies along the Black Sea and parts of the Mediterranean. In other words, he says, Miletus was the Greek city most open to the rest of the world. In particular, to the influence of the ancient empires and their millennia-old cultures. Hence, the people of Miletus were exposed to lots of ideas and ways that were not their own. Today, some might accuse the Milesians of misappropriating the culture of others. Even though cultural contamination can't be prevented any more than the transferences of diseases and invasive species that may have also been transported on those ships at their port. As Herman Melville writes in his famous seafaring adventure, Moby Dick, 1,000 fibers connect us with our fellow men. So it wasn't that there was anything special about these Greek thinkers, at least not any more special than any other group of people elsewhere. It was just that they were the ones exposed to ideas and ways that made them start thinking differently about their world and their worldview than their culture had once allowed. The early philosophers were so brilliant, that is, because of cross-cultural contamination. Their brilliance cannot be credited to them alone, but to all of humanity, because innovative thinking is what happens when diverse cultures meet and mix. Ravelli says, civilizations flourish when they mingle. They decline in isolation. Moments of great cultural ferment always correspond with moments of great cultural encounters. On the other hand, xenophobia leads, as he says, to decline. Attempting to make just one people or one country great, as in the case of Donald Trump and his supporters, can only lead to a society's ruin. Again, as Ravelli says, Roman poetry flourished when Rome allowed itself to be fertilized by Greek civilization. Notwithstanding the boorish, reactionary howls of those who wish to preserve the purity of the national cultural identity. Cultural purity is invoked even today only by the least intelligent citizens, terrified by the arrival of peoples different from them. That's right. We need our brothers and sisters from the southern part of our shared continent to cross the border, along with our Muslim neighbors from across the waters and immigrants from so many other places, to get us all mixed up. And in the process to enrich our society by helping us all become more innovative in our ways of thinking and doing things. Salman Rushdie, who says, like many millions of people, I am a bastard child of history, writes that the Satanic Verses, the book that got him condemned to death by the supreme leader of Iran, celebrates hybridity, impurity, intermingling, the transformation that comes of a new and unexpected combinations of human beings, cultures, ideas, politics, movies, songs. It rejoices in mongrelization and fears the absolutism of the pure. Melange, hodgepodge, a bit of this and a bit of that is how newness enters the world. It is the great possibility that mass migration gives the world, and I have tried to embrace it. The Satanic Verses is for change by fusion, change by conjoining. It is a love song to our mongrel selves. I tell you, the Ayatollah wouldn't be the only one canceling him today. Today's puritanical streak isn't limited to the isolationism that goes along with nationalism, as with the Brexit in UK and Trumpism in the US, but also is the characteristic of identitarian efforts on the left that demean individualism in favor of group identity, calling for us to segregate into our own identity groups and do what is impossible for us, to not allow ourselves to be influenced, inspired, learn, and borrow from one another under the banner of this expanded definition of misappropriation. Again, as Ravelli says, each time that we as a nation, a group, a continent, or a religion look inward in celebration of our specific identity, we do nothing but lionize our own limits and sing of our own stupidity. But each time that we open ourselves to diversity and ponder that which is different from us, we enlarge the richness and intelligence of the human race. This is precisely what happened when, after nearly 2 millennia, the Renaissance thinkers rediscovered the early philosophers who inspired them to undertake, guess what? The Studia Humanitatis, the study of all the writings of humanity, not just those confined to the one idea held by the Roman Catholic Church. And that's when humanity began to leap forward again, leading to the Enlightenment and all of the social, technological, scientific, political advances that came with it. This occurred, as Rovelli so beautifully puts it, because what opens our minds and shows the limits of our ideas is an encounter with other people, other cultures, other ideas. When I was minister at Clifton Unitarian Church in Louisville, Kentucky, I began the practice of having a talking stick ceremony every 2 months, an idea inspired by American Indians. I fondly recall going to the nearby Ohio River with my young children to find just the right stick. We finally settled upon about a 1.5 foot long, 18-inch piece of driftwood that branched into 2 at the top and was pointed at the bottom, or vice versa, according to how you held it. We also found a few cowrie shells with which to adorn it. Took it home and I sanded it and stained the stick, then lassoed the string of shells mixed with a large feather into the crook where the branches separated or parted. When our ceremonies took place, I only spoke long enough to say how the ceremony was to be conducted. Otherwise, I quietly held the stick, sometimes for long periods of silence between speakers. Our talking stick ceremony is a practice inspired by some Native Americans, I'd begin. When they had a concern to deal with, they'd meet and pass the talking stick around until the matter was settled. The words of whoever held the talking stick were considered sacred and were not to be interrupted, even if some disagreed with them. It was about listening with respect. In our ceremony, we also remain quiet when one is speaking and holding the talking stick. We let them have their say and their feelings without interruption. This means we don't applaud when we agree with them or move to comfort them should they become emotional. We let them share without judgment and interference. The only thing permissible for us ourselves is to laugh or cry, because these are spontaneous, authentic emotions that should not be constrained. The ceremony isn't about speaking, however. It's much more about listening and practicing how we ought to always engage with each other in our community. I then remind the congregation of the significance of the talking stick. It comes from the river that is part of our local home and our mother, the earth. It's open at the top to remind us to be open and honest with each other. And it's pointed at the bottom to remind us to be truthful and brief. You know how Unitarians can go on. The circle of shells represents our community, and the feather is the freedom within it to express ourselves without fear of judgment or condemnation. Then I would quiet myself and I'd step aside as I passed the stick to whomever came forward to speak. When they were done, they'd hand it back and I'd hold it quietly until another came forward. And so the ceremony went until it seemed nobody else wished to speak. I'd then take that talking stick and I would gently rest it atop the pulpit, the feather hanging over. And that's where it would rest, all the time as a reminder of how we're supposed to be together. Sometime later, when the Unitarian Universalist Association's Ministerial Fellowship Committee, the MFC, interviewed me as part of my ministerial credentialing process, I was asked about this ritual and if I understood what misappropriation means. I said yes, and I believe there's a difference between misappropriation and appropriation, influenced by the brilliant and beautiful ways of others, ways that are often better ways of looking at things than we previously did. I was then asked what I would do if the Native Americans asked me not to use the talking stick. I said I would probably stop, which seemed to satisfy the committee, but not me, because in truth I wasn't entirely sure I would. But by the time I came to Spokane, the expanded definition of misappropriation had taken greater hold, and I decided not to introduce it here, not because I agree that doing so is wrong, but just to avoid the potential controversy. But just talking about this makes me sad, because it's such a beautiful ritual, and it could have made a real difference in the life of our congregation over these years, especially in recent years. It also makes me sad because I love that talking stick. I found it, and I fashioned it, and I held reverence for it, and reverence for those who held it. Regardless of how it originated, it now belonged as much to me and our community as to anybody else. There's a notion dating back to Socrates and Plato that ideas are the only things that can be shared without ever being diminished. I think this is also true of culture. Once shared, borrowed, or even taken, this remains so. One thing is sure, however, this will alter society over time, which again really bothers the purist. But that's the way it is. That's how life works. We influence each other. We inspire each other. We change each other. We grow because of each other. Throughout human history, Rushdie says, the apostles of purity, those who have claimed to possess a total explanation, have wrought havoc among mere mixed-up human beings. Yet in reality, we catch each other's cultural ways almost as easily as we catch each other's colds and flus, because in the end, it's all human culture. As Jimmy Carter said during his 2002 Nobel Peace Prize acceptance speech, the bond of our common humanity is stronger than the divisiveness of our fears and prejudices. Just a year earlier, during his acceptance speech of the same prize, General Secretary of the United Nations Kofi Annan said, "We may have different religions, different languages, different colored skin, but we all belong to one human race." There is such an abundance of human genius, creativity, art, music, science, and beauty in the world, ready to inspire us and transform all of us for the better. And that human culture is really the only culture that I want to belong to, no matter how small the box that others try to squeeze me into. Thank you.
Please stand. Join me for number 121, We'll Build a Land. We'll build a land where we bind up the broken. We'll build a land where the captives go free, where the oil of gladness dissolves all mourning. Oh, we'll build a promised land that can be. Come, build a land where sisters and brothers, anointed by love, may then create peace, where justice shall roll down like waters, and peace like an ever-flowing stream. We'll build a land where we bring the good tidings to all the afflicted and all those who mourn, and we'll give them garlands instead of ashes. Oh, we'll build a promised land is born. Come, build a land where sisters and brothers, anointed by love, may then create peace, where justice shall roll down like waters, and peace like an ever-flowing stream.
Our closing benediction today is by James Morrison. Share your glorious light with the world. Within each of our hearts, there is a most glorious light. Go forth and let its spark help you understand what troubles both you and others. Go forth and let its light of reason be a guide in your decisions. Go forth and bring its ray of hope to those in need of help in both body and spirit, and that they may find healing. Go forth and fan the flames of passion to help heal our world. Go forth and spread the warm glow of love, pushing back the darkness of the world. Go forth and share your glorious light with the world. Amen. Blessed be. Salam alaikum and shalom.